this video, I want to look at the temporal relationship. There's a relationship that's built around the time element in Scripture, and then we'll look at another relationship in another video of the locational or locative relationship. But here we have a temporal relationship. This will be symbolized simply with the letter T, and we have the definition here. The relationship between the main proposition and the occasion when it can occur. The occasion when it can occur, or when it did occur if it's in the past. So we have that relationship. You'll notice the key words for this as words like when, time words, whenever, after, before, etc. You'll see other words that also denote time words, but often when or whenever will be your main clues there. You will, when you arc this passage, you will simply designate whichever proposition has the temporal element in it with a T underneath the arc, and then draw one arc over two to say that the relationship of these two propositions is a temporal one. Let me give you an example of what this looks like in Scripture, and we can arc that together. Genesis 50, verse 14. Genesis 50, verse 14. After he had buried his father, so immediately you see this, this temporal keyword here. After he had buried his father, comma, so we have our first proposition. He had buried his father. Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers. So with a second proposition, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers, and this is a key word that points us to the relationship of series or progression, so we'll keep that in mind. And all who had gone up with him to bury his father. So a third proposition there. So let's write this out as individual propositions, and then we will arc this together. After he had buried his father, comma, Joseph returned wow, it's jumping around. Returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had gone up with him to bury his father. So we want to identify our propositions. Verse 14, A, B. Boy, I'm sliding this around. A, B, and C. Draw our line, one arc over each proposition, and then begin to ask what is the relationship between each proposition, and which relationship do we want to arc first. We have this temporal word, after he had buried his father, but then we have two propositions joined by the word and, which I think points to a relationship of series. These two things happened. Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers, and everyone who had gone up with him to bury his father also returned to Egypt. So all these people returned to Egypt. So this seems to be in series together. Those two things happened. and they happened after he had buried his father. He returned to Egypt, and all these people returned to Egypt. The whole family returned to Egypt after they had buried Joseph's father. So we will label this as temporal and then draw an arc to say that this series of events happened after Joseph had buried his father. And that's how you would arc a temporal relationship in Genesis 50, verse 14.